Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive into something really interesting. Alphabet's Q4 2024 earnings report just came out, and it's making some waves, let me tell you, especially when it comes to the growth they're seeing in AI and YouTube.
Yeah, it's definitely a report that's got everyone in the tech world talking. I think Alphabet, Google's parent company, really seems to be hitting its stride now.
So let's get right to it. When you first looked at the report, what really jumped out at you?
Well, I got to say, the first thing that catches your eye is that overall revenue figure, $86.3 billion. That's a 13% jump from this time last year. And what makes that even more remarkable is the fact that a lot of people are predicting, some economic headwinds.
Right, so even with all that uncertainty in the air, they're still managing to pull in some serious growth. So what's the secret sauce? What's fueling that kind of performance?
Well, it seems like a two-pronged success story, really. On the one hand, you've got the continued dominance of Google services, good old search and YouTube. Those brought in $68.1 billion. I mean, those are their classic offerings, and they're still going strong, clearly.
And on the other hand?
On the other hand, we're seeing Google Cloud really take off. They hit $10.3 billion in revenue, which is a 26% increase. So that seems to suggest a pretty strategic shift for Alphabet. Maybe it even reflects, a larger trend in tech where cloud computing is becoming mission critical.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like they're really making a play to be a major player in that cloud space, going up against those giants like Amazon and Microsoft. But let's switch gears for a second and talk about YouTube. I mean, it's not just for cat videos anymore, is it?
No, not at all. YouTube has become a real powerhouse for Alphabet. It brought in a whopping $10.4 billion in ad revenue, and that's a 19% increase from last year. And it's not just ad revenue that's going up either. They also just hit a major milestone with over 100 million subscribers for YouTube Premium and Music.
Wow, that's a lot of subscribers.
Yeah.
What do you think is driving that kind of growth in subscriptions? Is it simply that people just don't want to see ads anymore?
Well, getting rid of ads is definitely part of the appeal, yeah. But it's bigger than that. YouTube is becoming a place for premium content. I mean, they've got original shows and movies, live events. Remember that deal they made recently to get the rights to NFL Sunday Ticket? That was huge. That kind of strategic move is bringing in a whole new audience and really boosting engagement.
So it's like YouTube's becoming more like a traditional media company,
Yeah.
producing and distributing their own stuff. That's a pretty big shift. But you know what? Let's move on to what I think is maybe the most exciting part of this whole report, AI. It seems like AI is at the center of everything Alphabet's doing these days.
Yeah, it's pretty undeniable that AI is the most transformative technology we've seen since, the internet. And Alphabet is going all in on it. We're seeing AI integrated into everything now: search, workspace, Google Cloud, you name it, even self-driving cars.
Right, and it's not just about adding some cool new features or bells and whistles. It feels like AI is actually driving real revenue growth for Alphabet. Like their AI-powered search ads, those are doing incredibly well.
Yeah.
What do you think is the secret to their success there?
Well, for one thing, Google has been pouring resources into AI research and development for years now. They've got some of the best and brightest minds in the field working for them. Plus, they've got this massive amount of data. Data is the fuel that powers AI, and they've been collecting it for years.
Right.
And they're also really good at making AI accessible to businesses. I mean, they offer user-friendly tools and platforms through Google Cloud. That's attracting all kinds of businesses, from small startups to giant corporations, and that's a big part of why they're seeing that impressive 26% growth in Google Cloud that we talked about earlier.
So it's like AI isn't just a technology for them, it's like their whole business strategy. But, they're not the only ones in this race, right? There are some big players out there who are going after AI just as aggressively, especially Microsoft and OpenAI, right?
Oh, absolutely. The AI world is super competitive right now. Microsoft is a really tough competitor. They've got their Azure cloud platform, plus their strong connection with OpenAI. Those are the folks who created ChatGPT, and they're really making waves. And then there's Amazon with their AWS cloud platform. They've got a strong AI offering, too. It's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out over the next few years.
Yeah, it's definitely a battle royale to keep our eyes on. But even with all this success, Alphabet's got to be facing some challenges, too, right? Nobody's perfect.
Of course, every company has its challenges. I think one big concern is the uncertainty in the global advertising market. That could definitely impact Google's core revenue stream, since a lot of their earnings come from advertising.
Yeah, that's a real worry.
And then there's that ongoing Department of Justice antitrust lawsuit. That's a pretty big threat. It focuses on Google's dominance in the online advertising market, and depending on how it goes, the outcome could have some major consequences for how they run their business.
So even with all this amazing growth, there were some storm clouds on the horizon. It makes you wonder how Alphabet will handle those challenges. What do you think? Are they up to the task?
Well, Alphabet has a history of being resilient and adaptable. They've always been good at innovating and changing course when they need to. But these are some pretty serious challenges, and they're going to need to think carefully and make some smart, strategic decisions to come out on top.
It just goes to show that even the giants of the tech world aren't invincible. They have to keep evolving to stay ahead.
But let's shift our focus to the future for a minute. What's next for Alphabet? What can we expect to see from them in 2025 and beyond? Well, one thing's for sure. We can definitely expect even deeper integration of AI across all of their products and services. I mean, just imagine a world where your Google Assistant can anticipate your needs before you even ask it, or where Gmail can draft emails for you automatically, and Google Maps. Forget about it. It'll predict traffic with mind-blowing accuracy. It's going to be a world where AI is just seamlessly woven into our daily lives.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. That sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But what about the more down-to-earth business stuff? What are some of the key trends to keep an eye on there?
Good question. Well, when it comes to YouTube, I think we're going to see them keep growing their subscription services and putting out more and more premium content. I mean, they're already kind of competing with Netflix and Disney Plus in a way, and I think that's only going to heat up. And then, of course, there's Google Cloud. They're going to keep chasing after those market leaders, AWS and Microsoft Azure. It's going to be a tight race, but Google Cloud has some unique advantages, particularly in the AI and machine learning departments.
So it sounds like Alphabet's in a good spot, poised for continued success. But the tech landscape is always shifting, and the competition is fierce. It's a fascinating time to be watching this company, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about Alphabet either. Their journey kind of reflects the larger trends that are shaping the whole tech world, and maybe even the world in general. We're living in a time of incredible technological change, and it's important to understand not just what's changing, but why it's changing and what it all means in the bigger picture.
You're right. We can't just sit back and watch it all happen. We need to really engage with these technologies, understand their implications, and think critically about how they're changing the world around us. But we've covered a lot of ground already, and I bet our listeners are eager to hear more about the specifics.
You're probably right. Maybe it's time to dig a little deeper into some of those details, like starting with the rise of YouTube and all the smart moves they're making to get more viewers and head dollars.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect place to pick up. We'll be back in just a bit to continue our deep dive into Alphabet's Q4 2024 performance. But while we're gone, we encourage you to think about the questions we've raised today and consider how these technological advancements might be impacting your own lives.
Yeah, definitely. Keep exploring. There's a whole world of innovation out there just waiting to be discovered.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how the digital world is really changing, Like YouTube is not what it used to be. They've gotten a lot more, sophisticated.
Yeah, for sure. They've been super strategic about how they've changed over time. It's really interesting to see how they've used technology and, getting the right content to really grow.
Absolutely. We talked about that NFL Sunday ticket deal earlier. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about how those kinds of partnerships are helping YouTube succeed?
Sure. So think about it like this. When they get the rights to stream those really popular live events like NFL games, it brings in tons of viewers, right?
Right.
And a lot of those viewers might not have been watching YouTube regularly before.
Makes sense.
And then once they're there on the platform, they start seeing all this other content that YouTube has.
So it's not just about getting new people to watch. It's about getting them hooked on the whole YouTube experience.
Exactly. And when people are watching more, that means YouTube can charge advertisers more to reach those viewers.
So it's a win-win for YouTube. More viewers, more engagement, more money. And for the viewers, they get to see stuff they might not have been able to watch otherwise.
That's the idea. And it's not just live events. Either YouTube's also spending a lot of money to make their own shows and movies. They're getting some big names involved and really pushing the limits of what people think of as, like, YouTube content,
It's like they're becoming more like a traditional media company. They're blurring the lines between online video and those big players like Netflix and Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. And that's happening all over the media world, actually. Those old school media companies are trying to figure out digital platforms, and the digital platforms are learning from the old school guys.
It's pretty cool to see how those worlds are kind of crashing into each other and changing each other. But let's go back to AI for a minute. We were talking about how it's a part of almost every part of Alphabet's business. Can you give us some specific examples of how they're using AI to make things better for users and make more money?
Oh, totally. Let's take Google search as an example. They're using AI to really understand what people are searching for, like on a much deeper level. And that means they can give more relevant results and even guess what people want before they finish typing.
It's like Google search is getting smarter, more like having a conversation with someone who actually knows their stuff.
Right. And when it comes to making money, they're using AI to personalize ads. So people see ads that are more relevant to them, which makes them more likely to actually click or buy something.
So it's not just about throwing any old ad in people's faces. It's about making the ads actually useful and interesting.
Exactly. It's about making things better for both the people using Google and the advertisers. And that's where all that data Google has comes in handy. They have so much information about how people use their products, and they can use all that data to train their AI to be super accurate and effective.
It's like they have this huge head start in the AI race because they already have all this data, right?
It definitely gives them an edge. But it's not just about having data. You need the right algorithms, the right infrastructure, and the right people to actually make sense of all that data and turn it into something useful.
And it seems like Google has all those things in place.
Yeah, they've been putting a lot of effort and money into AI for years, and it's really starting to show. But, like we were saying before, they're not alone in this AI race. Microsoft and Amazon are both really strong competitors, each with their own strengths and approaches to AI. So, what do you think are some of the key differences between how Google's approaching AI and how its competitors are doing it? That's a great question. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, one big difference is that Google knows search inside and out. I mean, they've been indexing and understanding the web for over 20 years, right?
Right.
So that gives them a real advantage when it comes to AI that can understand and work with language.
So basically, being the king of search is helping them be a leader in AI too.
Exactly. And you can't forget about all the stuff they've done to make AI tools available to everyone, like TensorFlow. That's become a super popular tool for developers, and it's helped to make AI more accessible to a lot of people.
So even though they're competing hard, they're also helping to make AI better as a whole. That's kind of cool.
It is, and I think it shows that they really believe AI can make things better for everyone.
Yeah.
They're not trying to keep it all to themselves. They want to push the limits of what's possible and share it with the world. It's definitely an exciting time to be watching all this unfold. But like with any powerful new technology, there are worries about the downsides of AI. There's been a lot of talk about ethics in AI, especially things like bias, privacy, and jobs disappearing. How's Alphabet addressing those concerns?
That's a super important question, and it's something Alphabet's taking very seriously. They've actually published their AI principles, which are like guidelines for how they develop and use AI. These principles are all about being fair, accountable, and transparent. They're also putting money into AI safety research and working with governments to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly.
So it's not just about the cool stuff AI can do, it's also about thinking about how it affects society as a whole.
Right. They get that AI can be amazing, but it could also cause problems. It's really important to have these conversations and make sure AI is used for good.
You're right. Now, before we move on, let's go back to those challenges Alphabet's facing. We talked about that uncertainty in the global advertising market and the Department of Justice lawsuit. Can you tell us a little more about how those things could impact Alphabet?
Of course. So let's start with the advertising market. As you know, advertising makes up a huge chunk of Alphabet's revenue. If the global economy starts to slow down, businesses tend to cut back on advertising, which could hit Google's ad revenue pretty hard.
So even if their products are doing great, they could still lose money if the whole advertising market shrinks.
Exactly. They can't control everything. And then there's that antitrust lawsuit. That's a serious legal challenge that could make Google change how their whole advertising business works.
Can you break down what that lawsuit's all about? What are the main things people are accusing Google of doing wrong?
Okay, so basically, the Department of Justice is saying that Google is using its power in search and online advertising to squash the competition and keep a monopoly on the market. They're especially focused on the fact that Google is both buying and selling online ads. They're saying that gives Google an unfair advantage over everyone else.
So the big question is whether Google's using its power unfairly to hurt its competition.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And how this lawsuit turns out could change the whole online advertising industry, not just Google.
It's definitely something to watch closely. It's a good reminder that even the biggest, most successful companies can be vulnerable. They have to stay on their toes to stay ahead of the game.
Ah.
But for now, let's talk about the future. What are some specific things we can expect from Alphabet in the next few years?
Well, I think we're going to see some big leaps forward in personalized technology, and AI is going to be a big part of that. They'll be able to tailor their products and services to each person's needs and likes.
Can you give us an example of what that might actually look like?
Sure, just imagine your Google Assistant not just understanding what you say, but actually learning your habits, what you like and what you want to achieve. It could start suggesting things you might be interested in, help you manage your time better, and even know what you need before you do.
Whoa. That's like having a personal assistant who knows you better than you know yourself. That's kind of cool, but also kind of creepy,
I
right?
know what you mean. It's super powerful technology, so we got to be careful about privacy and making sure people still have control. But if it's used responsibly, personalized technology could make our lives way easier, more efficient, and even more enjoyable.
It's a tough balance for sure. But I think we have time for one last big question before we wrap things up for today. What do you think about Alphabet in the long run? Where do you see them in, say, 5 or 10 years?
Wow, that's a tough one. It's hard to say for sure because technology changes so fast. But based on what I've seen, I think AI is going to keep being a huge driving force for them. They're clearly putting a lot of their chips on AI, so to speak, and I think they'll keep investing heavily in it. I also think their cloud computing business is going to keep growing because more and more businesses are moving to the cloud.
So AI and the cloud, those are going to be the two big engines driving Alphabet forward.
Exactly. But they're not going to just stop there. They're always looking
Dude.
for the next big thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly jump into a whole new market or even change completely in the next 10 years.
That's pretty wild to think about. It's definitely an exciting time to be following this company. But we've covered a ton of information in this part of our deep dive. Maybe it's time for a little break to let everyone digest everything we've talked about.
Good idea. Let's take a short pause and then we'll come back and finish up our look at Alphabet's Q4 2024 performance and what it all means for the future of technology.
Welcome back. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? Exploring all the ins and outs of Alphabet's Q4 2024 performance. We've seen some pretty impressive stuff, from their financial wins to YouTube's strategic moves and their big push into AI. Alphabet's definitely not standing still.
It has been fascinating, hasn't it? Unpacking all the different parts of their business. I mean, we've seen how they're using technology to not just grow, but to adapt to the changing market and even to kind of shape how we all interact with information.
And speaking of shaping the future, that brings up a question we've been dancing around this whole time.
Yeah.
How is Alphabet going to handle all the ethical questions that come with such fast technological advancement?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one we all need to think about. As AI gets more and more powerful, we have to consider how it's going to affect society and make sure it's used responsibly and ethically, for good.
Right. It's not just about the cool things AI can do. It's about the unintended consequences, too.
Yeah.
Alphabet and really the whole tech industry needs to think about the bigger picture, how their innovations are going to affect society as a whole.
Absolutely. And it's not just up to companies to figure this out. It's got to be a conversation we're all having. We need to talk openly and honestly about the potential benefits and risks of AI and include everyone in that conversation, policymakers, ethicists, the public, everyone.
It's shared responsibility, no doubt about it. We can't just embrace every shiny new technology without thinking about how it's going to impact our values, our privacy, our future. It's a lot to consider.
It is. And that's exactly why conversations like this one are so important. We need to go beyond the headlines and really dig into these complex issues, help people understand what's really going on and what's at stake.
And knowledge is power, right? The more we know, the better prepared we'll be to deal with this ever-changing tech world.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not just about understanding the technical stuff. It's about thinking critically, asking the hard questions, and making sure the companies developing these powerful technologies are being transparent and accountable.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Alphabet's performance, what are some key takeaways you'd like our listeners to walk away with?
Hmm. Well, I think the first one is that Alphabet is a company that's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with technology. Their decisions have a huge impact, so they're definitely a company to watch, not just for their financial success, but for how they're shaping the whole tech landscape.
They're trailblazers, that's for sure.
And secondly, It's pretty obvious now that AI isn't some futuristic fantasy anymore. It's here, it's changing everything, and we need to start thinking about it seriously, considering both the good and the bad. It's a powerful tool that needs to be used wisely.
We can't just sit back and let it happen. We have a responsibility to shape the future of AI and make sure it's used to create a better world for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And lastly, don't forget that the tech world moves fast. What's hot today might be old news tomorrow. So stay curious, stay informed, and be ready to adapt because things are changing constantly.
Well said. It's been a really fascinating journey exploring the world of Alphabet and what it all means for the future of technology. We hope you've learned some valuable things today and that we've sparked your curiosity to keep learning more.
And this is just the start of the conversation, really. We encourage you to keep digging into the things we've talked about, whether it's AI, cloud computing, or the evolution of online media. The future is being written right now, and you have a role to play in shaping it.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.